I think one of the game changers was this pandemic, right? So I'm so used to, like I said, Saturday going to the church, hearing a preacher. So the pandemic changed things for me because once everything shut down, you have to be more creative. You have to do things differently. So we started going to people. We started going to people instead of a preacher speaking to us. You know, they instead of us speaking to them or a normal, let's say the homeless population, like they're preaching to us. They're telling us their story, right? And so being Christ's hands and feet had a new meaning to me on that day. It was something that I started looking forward to. And I think the change is, instead of focusing on what I couldn't do, I think once you start focusing on the things you can do, it holds a new meaning. Mo. So 2018, we're visiting homeless once a week. 2019, we went to 3 times a week. We went from the shelter to Vespers in church. And then this year in January, we're like, you know what? We're really gonna help our community this week. We're gonna do 7 days a week. And so the year started off Monday, going to the men's shelter, Tuesday, children's shelter, Wednesday, women's shelter. Thursday, we had a block party with dinner, groceries, haircuts, clothes. And then we had many different classes, counseling, job placement, boot camp, piano, violin, guitar lessons, vegan cooking, art class. Friday we had Vespers, Sabbath we had church, Sunday we had Bible studies. And so it's funny how, you know, everything, you have everything planned and you think it'll go a certain way. But, you know, I learned that, you know, God's ways, you know, He has other plans. You know, you can plan something, but ministry doesn't always go as you plan, right? But it was the biggest blessing in disguise, because after a while, it almost felt like a burden. It's like, oh man, you know, 7 days a week, I'm getting tired of it. And I think it's because it was my own plans. But when COVID hit in March, I think it was the 3rd week, it really turned things literally upside down, right? Because now they're used to coming to us 7 days a week. You know, we're going out to them now. 7 days a week, we're going, hey, Bo, I'm over here at this street, this address. And so we're going to them instead of having a pastor. You know, we were continually saying, hey, I can't wait till church opens back up. Then we'll bring you to the pastor, we'll bring you to the church. But, you know, more and more realize that, you know, we're the church, and they're, you know, you never know whose eyes Jesus is looking at you through. They became the weekly, the daily sermon to us. You know, they would lift us up, and I don't know, I never realized that concept that we can be the church. You know, we can be God's hands and feet. We do not have to have a choir. We do not have to have a preacher. That we ourselves can be the church. So I think it saved our ministry because I realized that, hey, we don't need to have the pastor. We don't need the church, as long as you have compassion, as long as you have sympathy, as long as you have care, you know. And you can still have the church for others, for yourself. You know, you don't have to wait for things to reopen. You know, and I feel like that it was in God's, when Jesus came, same thing, right? He showed up in our neighborhood, set up tent, set up shop, and He just was with us, right? And so I really compare it to that, where it's like, hey, you know, He didn't wait for a specific situation, an ideal circumstance. He came and moved in next to us and was just with us, which was enough. And so more and more I'm realizing that, hey, just being with someone is enough.
When the news kind of continued to grow or surrounding the pandemic, we realized that, hey, it's probably not going to be likely that we'll be able to put on the big wedding that we were anticipating. Close to 300 people, like family coming from Jamaica, her family's from Puerto Rico, and a lot of people from our college years. We wanted to have a chance to kind of celebrate with them. And we had to make that tough call and say, all right, we're going to have to kind of downsize this like very significantly. And we cut that list literally down to 15 people. And that was tough. That was tough. And I do remember that moment where it really kind of like hit, where I was like, man, I'm not going to be able to celebrate this like historic moment in our lives with the people that had been with us on this journey that we had been on. But that actual day, we're social distancing, we're wearing masks, we're getting married. We did find a little beauty in that moment that I don't know if it would be possible to experience in that large wedding. There was a level of intimacy that I don't know if it would have been possible with like 300 people trying to take pictures. We got to see our parents kind of interact a lot more than we normally didn't. But I think on a larger level, a smaller wedding, I think, is kind of what was needed for Esther and I's story. We had been long distance for like, oh my Lord, it feels like forever, but maybe 2.5, 3 years. And there had been some bumps in the road also prior to that. And so it felt like things always felt a little complicated in the way that we had to do our relationship, whether I'm making sure I'm saving money so I can buy a plane ticket, or just she's doing the same thing on her end, or we're trying to work through things long distance. We're not able to see each other. Key moments where it would have been really nice if like she was there like on a Saturday night and you're like, man, I wish Esther was here. And then having to make those major career moves where I got the call to be a chaplain at Walla Walla University, which was a phenomenal experience. And then she got the call to be a teacher in Indianapolis, which had just shattered the plans that we had, because immediately out of college, we were kind of thinking, all right, let's go back to the East Coast. And so trying to navigate through our own individual journeys while trying to like maintain this, like it did feel very high maintenance, a lot of energy kind of being taken out. And I feel like we deserved to have a very simple, basic, boring season in our relationship that we never really had prior to that point. And I think having that simple marriage, or a wedding ceremony rather, kind of gave us the start to, I would say, has been very healing for me.
I've had some very painful conversations with parents, for sure, about how they have been impacted, especially the school that I teach at. It's in Southeast DC, it's predominantly Black. A lot of the parents and my kids are essential workers, so I have students that have been very directly impacted by COVID-19. They've known people who have had it, they had it themselves. So there's definitely been some very painful conversations that I've had that will most definitely stick with me. There's also been like hilarious moments that are just like you'll call on a kid, and if a kid doesn't want to answer, they'll just get up and leave. Like what am I gonna do? Like I can't do anything. So there's definitely been some moments that are just really funny. I think I've had a couple moments where I was able to, there have been a couple moments where I've actually been able to connect with a student. Like I had a student who, at the beginning of the year, I could just tell she hated coming to school on Zoom. She was very, I could just tell this was not working for her. And she was showing it in ways that could be kind of aggressive. And so I was really concerned, honestly. It was I really don't know what to do. It's very difficult to manage this stuff, besides just calling parents and being like, hey, this is what she's doing right now and she has to stop because we can't continue the class if she does this. But I had a chance to talk with her one-on-one in our own little Zoom breakout room and just give her a chance to just talk about herself for a couple of minutes. And it completely changed her demeanor. And so just having small moments like that wherever you can find them to sort of bring that kind of personal intimacy that you have in a classroom into the Zoom setting has been very, very helpful, and it helps make the whole situation a little less discouraging. I don't think people understand how many different things you are, how many different roles you are filling in any given moment, and how many decisions you are making in any given moment, especially in a classroom space with 30 kids, especially if you're teaching at a school where students have experienced a lot of trauma. You're literally trying to be everything at any given moment: a mom, a teacher, a doctor, a therapist. and you're trying to be all these things at the same time for different kids and making so many spur of the moment decisions that just like you can't prepare yourself for. Like when you wake up and go to work, you're like, literally anything could happen today. Like it could be a wonderful day where everybody gets along and we have no problems. It could be a day where I'm pulling 2 kids off of each other at recess because somebody hit the other kid with the football. Like anything could happen. And that level of like, that is not something that you can just walk into and do. Like it really does take a lot of expertise, and you have to learn it on the job. Like you don't get a chance to become an expert beforehand. Like you walk in and you're learning as you're doing it. And that is a lot. I think in terms of this specific setting, I don't think people know how much virtual learning and teachers who are teaching virtually right now are actually really attempting to save the future of our nation. I mean, like, I don't know if people understand how much learning was lost in just those 3 months that we weren't in school, and how long lasting the impacts of that will be on everybody, especially Black people, like people of color in low income areas where the gap was even bigger. Like this is a generation of learners whose entire education was disrupted, and in some cases they lost an entire year's worth of content. And so right now, teachers who are teaching virtually are literally trying to close a gap that was already huge. It was already a huge gap, and it just got exponentially bigger. And if we don't close it, it's going to continue to get exponentially bigger. So the stakes are extremely high. And that level of stress right now is insane. It's insane.
We were given 4 months to create 10 episodes of this series. We got our kind of approval for this project before COVID started. We had 1 week where we were able to do a bunch of interviews, and then everything shut down. I mean everything, travel, even the event that this was meant to be shown at in the summer, just completely gone. And so my expectations were, we're gonna go out, we're gonna dig stuff up, we're gonna, get involved in people's lives, and then I'm gonna have half the year of doing other things. And so I did not expect that we were going to be co-writing history. We're interviewing people in 2020, like the most standout historic year in my life. And we're interviewing them, we interviewed people who had to get married with only 10 or 15 people that could come to their wedding. We're interviewing people who are figuring out what to do when church is closed. We're interviewing people in a standout moment for all people, for the whole world. And so my expectations going in were much smaller, in that we're gonna make a film project. I hope that it connects well, and we'll continue growing it over time. Instead, we were able to go out, connect people together, and bring a visual experience of 2020 for Adventists in a pivotal moment visually on screen.